Hello, this is Gary Aldridge. I'm the author of Leveraging You, which is an online course that teaches business owners how to maximize the value of their business. But in addition to that, it's more than about business and numbers and money, but it's about touching lives. Okay, so today we've got a special guest, and that's Jenny Williamson. And Jenny and I go way back. We've known each other since high school, which was 2 or 3 years ago, and Jenny has started a ministry called Courage Worldwide, and they work with recovering young ladies out of human trafficking, and they do just a ton of stuff. And rather than me try to explain it to you, I'm gonna let Jenny do that. Jenny, welcome, and just start off by telling us a little bit about you and who you are and how you got into working with Courage Worldwide.
Absolutely. It's so good to see you. I know it's crazy how social media can reconnect us after all these years and on different sides of the United States. So I'm super happy to be here. I'm a Mississippi girl. I kept the accent, but I've been out west for 30 years now. Still got a lot of family back in the South, so and back there very often. And well, like you, Gary, we were in business our whole lives. My husband owns his own business. He is a natural gas consultant. I was his CFO, which meant I got to work from home and raise my kids at the same time. So it was super cool. But I just kind of went through a phase in my business life in my 40s and my mom life where my kids were getting older and we were doing what we do for business. I mean, a lovely life in the San Francisco Bay Area, but my heart was just like tugging about making impact. And you and I, the last time we talked about that word impact. And, is what I'm doing making a difference? Is my business making a difference? Is my faith making a difference? Is my life making a difference? And I think at some point, especially when you get to be our age, that becomes a question that you begin to ask. And so that began my
Mm-hmm.
journey of really discovering what my purpose was. And so it was a fabulous journey, and I just felt like I was supposed to be doing something. I birthed three boys, but I always wanted daughters in the back of my mind. And so literally one day I was sitting in church and I heard the pastor tell me that I lived in a world where children were sold for sex.
Mm.
And it just recalibrated me. It was like there was nobody else in that church service but me. I just was so broken. And we can all turn on the news and hear horrendous stories about what's going on, but then we just keep going or turn the channel or say, "Oh, isn't that sad?" But rarely does it just intersect our lives and make it stop. But that is what happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I began to explore the issue of human trafficking and found out that it happened in our backyards. And anyone who is listening to this, the reaction is always, well, I don't live in San Francisco or New York or Atlanta, all those big cities, Chicago, where bad things happen. I live, in a rural area or small town. It happens, Gary, in every single city
Mm-hmm.
in the world. There is not one state in the United States that hasn't had a human trafficking case. And so what I began to see as I studied this issue was there was a lack of homes and a lack of service and a lack of awareness. And so it just kind of hit my mom's heart when I read they don't have homes. Well, any of us who've raised kids and made a home, it just broke my heart that piece that they were missing. I don't know the mental health part. I didn't know anything about trauma, so I couldn't attack it from that end. But I thought, well, dang, I can build a home. It can't be that hard. Well, any of us who's ever started a business, probably if we knew what it would all take, we would have run for the hills. Same way in the nonprofit world. If you knew what you were getting into, you might have said no. So I'm kind of thankful we all don't get a crystal ball to see what the movie would look like. So all of a sudden, I found myself running around my community, screaming to anyone that listened, we live in a world where children are sold for sex. And
Wow.
why don't you do what you do for these kids? And so when you and I started talking, I was like, oh my gosh, Gary, you're the mantra for my saying. It doesn't matter what you do. So I was just a mom and I had a business. So I knew how to run a business, a nonprofit. So starting a business, starting a nonprofit, that wasn't a big stretch, being a mom. And so then I just kind of filled in all the blanks with really amazing people. I hired those mental health professionals that understood trauma. I hired the CPA and the accountant. I hired the people that could do their piece of this. And then we just started doing what we do, which I'm loud and I talk a lot and I'm really bossy and I'm a mom. So I just took all of that and just beginning to tell that story and just to really be a voice for those that didn't have a voice. And so out of that, I had a trip to Africa to do a women's conference. So the next thing I know, the village leaders gave me a building. I didn't know why I needed a building in Africa. Now we have a 5-acre campus, 3 locations, a cafe in Tanzania, Africa. And we had a home in Northern California, and because of licensing, we closed that home, and we're now about to open in Nevada. And so our goal from a business model is to prototype that home and then roll it out across the United States and across the world to any city that needs one.
Wow. That's so much.
It's so much.
It's so much. It's like hard to know where to jump in. I know for me, and I don't spend a lot of time on Facebook, but I get on there just to kill time like a lot of people. And I remember reconnecting with you a few years ago, and then I remember seeing you posting things about this, and I would watch videos of ladies just telling their story, and I just got hooked. I just couldn't believe what was going on, and I hear about how prevalent it is, and I live in the Middle Tennessee area outside of Nashville, how prominent it is here, and in Birmingham and Atlanta it's like a triangle, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. So anyway, part of what I do on the one hand, on the business side, is try to help people make more money, right, and add more value to their business. But really, what's more important to me is touching lives. Life's more than just paying bills and paying people, right? I mean, we got to do that, and everybody wants to make money and have toys and go play whatever. But it's really about touching lives. And anyway, I got hooked when I saw the videos that you posted on there. So what's a day in the life of Jenny like as it pertains to Courage Worldwide?
Well, it's business. I mean, I think a lot of people, when they hear the term nonprofit, they kind of discount the business part of that. And you have to have a very solid business because we have to pay our employees. So all of our programs, when I'm talking about the girls and rescuing girls, I just said rescue, that's a term we're trying not to use, recovering girls, and to providing them with homes and resources, then if we don't have a stable infrastructure as a business, then we can't provide those things. And we can't pay the best of the best. I think that's another thing that people think in nonprofits is that you won't make any money if you work for a nonprofit. Well, if the nonprofit is funded and stabilized, we want to go out and hire the best CPA. We want to go out and hire the best mental health professional. And that's a personal, business passion of mine, is to see the nonprofit world on a level playing field employee-wise. Because in the past, you had to dumb your salary down to be able to help people. And that's why I love doing what you and I are doing, is because that's a different message that we want to send, is that we want to hire the best of the best, because our programs are only people. There's no magic system. If I don't have the best people, then I don't have the ability to take these girls on a journey of healing, because that means an education. Well, they can't go to the local school, so we have to have an on-site school. So I have to have the best of the best teachers. I have to have the best of the best, supervisors. I have to have the best of the best mental health professionals. And so on that part is my job as a CEO and founder, is to make sure that the business model is stable and it's firm. And so then, of course, I'm always, looking for funding. I hate that part of a nonprofit world. I'm super independent. I've been in the business world forever. I make money, not ask for money. So that's a hard transition for me. But being the voice of the girls and telling their stories, I feel like that's where I put my mom hat on. And I say to people, those who are listening to this podcast, your mind is blown if you try to think about, what if this was my daughter? Okay, so if I talk about girls in Africa, or if I talk about girls in the foster care system, or, marginalized, we kind of think, oh, well, that's not us. Right. But sadly, this issue is happening to girls in mainstream. And so I try to ask people, what would you do if this was your daughter? Everything. You would do
Yeah.
everything. You would
Yeah.
give any amount of money. You would use your influence. You would use your resources. If you knew the governor, if you knew the DA, if you knew law enforcement, if you knew people who had money, you would use all your influence and resources to rescue your
Right.
kid. And so
Right.
that's when I put on that mom hat and leave my business hat behind and really challenge people to look at these kids and think about what would you do if it's your own daughter or your niece or your sister. And God forbid that it would ever happen. But that's what my day looks like.
Well, tell me, I love your vision. Tell me about your vision, talking about recovering. I'm using the right word here. Recovering. I think it's 1 million ladies in 100 countries in 10 years. I think I said it for you, but tell us about
Yeah.
that.
It's so
I love
crazy.
it.
Every time in business or the nonprofit world, people ask you what's your mission and what's your vision. And I remember sitting down and really wrestling with the question of vision. And if you're doing vision casting with people, you say, look out 10 years from now and what would that look like? And as I went through this exercise personally and with our staff, we didn't believe we could say end human trafficking, end sex trafficking. That sounds really nice, but I don't really think in my lifetime or my kids' lifetime that's going to change this issue. We call it human trafficking. We call it sex trafficking. It's prostitution. It's rape. It's pimping and pan. It's words that have been around forever. And
Right.
so I don't think I'm going to be able to affect that. So what can I affect? And so when I look down that landscape, is that we want to impact 1 million people. We want 1 million people to have heard of Courage Worldwide and what we're doing. And then we want to build this prototype, this home, 1,000 homes in 100 countries in 10 years. And I remember when I first
1,000. Say
started
that
doing
again.
this.
Say that
Okay.
again.
We want to influence 1 million people to build 1,000 homes in 100 countries in 10 years. So
Wow.
that
That's,
hundreds of thousands of children can have
yeah.
a place to call home and begin that healing journey. And for me, I'm a faith person. So when I first started doing this, I was like, let's see, let's affect 100,000 people, maybe, build 10 homes. And I just felt like God said, you, Jenny, could probably do that.
Yeah.
You could probably do that. 25 homes. But what if we did it from a place of faith? What is something that with man is impossible, but maybe with God could be possible? And so that's where the 1,000,000,110 came from.
Well, that's interesting. And part of my getting hooked was reading about that, your vision, your mission, your goal. And I went through a similar thing with Leveraging You, and I thought, I'm a business guy. I'm kind of a numbers geek, and so I put some numbers down and said I want to hit this number, blah blah blah, all that kind of stuff. And then a few weeks later, I thought, no, that's not big enough, and so went to a bigger number, and then and a few weeks later said, no, it's not big enough. So I picked a bigger number, and for me, it sounds similar, but there's a reason for that, and that's, for me, I want to touch 1 million businesses. Okay, so if I can teach 1 million business owners how to add $1 million to their value, that's $1 trillion. And so that's, and part of the program that, we're working on together, and, I haven't gone into it here, is to try to teach business owners not just to grow, but to grow to give. And so,
Love that.
segue, Jenny and I are working on a program together where we do that. So I'm looking forward to that. But, in that way, if people just give even a small percentage, I'm not asking for 10% of that, but just a percent of that or a small percentage of that to go to Courage Worldwide. I mean, what a huge difference that would make in the lives of tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of young ladies around the world, including in your backyard. So, yeah. So anyway, that's a neat thing. So I'm looking forward to doing that. So what have I not asked that I should have asked you already? Now I've lost my train of thought.
It's okay. No, it's exciting the big vision, it's interesting. Either people really resonate with it, or they go, "Have you lost your mind? I mean, you really can't do that," or that's only 10 years. And it's when you start really putting it on paper and looking at what kind of impact do you want your business to have. It's
Right.
something very scary about putting those numbers down, but it's like one of the things that we wanted to do, and especially because I come from a business background, when I started feeling the sense of how big this could be, I really was like, well, how are we going to pay for this? Because I'm not going to run around begging people for money for the rest of my life. It's not who I am. And so we had this whole idea for Courage Cafes, and it was going to be a place where the community, it would be the community face of Courage, because you can't take people to the safe house. It's like, I'm not going to bring people to come into your children's bedrooms to say, look at their bedroom. I mean, that's just creepy, right? And so we needed a place where we could raise awareness, where people come like, oh my gosh, this cup of coffee is literally changing a child's life, and be able to tell people what we did. And so that vision of the Courage Cafe, it's a 15-year vision, just opened last year. And so I just encourage all your listeners, I'm super excited we're talking about my kids and what we do, but the idea of dreaming big to impact people, not just make money, just really changes how you even articulate what you do, and resonates with people who want to impact the world. And I believe that in each of us, there is that desire to make a difference. And that's why our tagline is changing the world one individual at a time. If I focus on how big human trafficking is, I'll just get discouraged and just go home. But
Right.
thinking I can't make an impact. We're talking about billions of dollars a year in revenue. That's what people are making selling children. Like people,
Wow.
it's so hard for them. We're talking about business and wanting to impact. These guys literally sit down and have a business model. They sit down and go, okay, if I've got one girl and her quota is $1,000 a night, wow,
Wow.
if I add 10 girls, look at that multiplication. I mean, it is
Yeah.
organized crime. It is big business. Somebody is making money off a child. And so that's when we rewind to what you and I are talking about. I'm trying to fight a multi-billion-dollar worldwide industry with a little nonprofit, telling a little story. And so you feel like you're really a David up against a Goliath, but you're trying to fight this, the only way we know how, and that's with truth and telling these stories and making people aware of what's happening, because it's millions of victims worldwide. And then you start bringing that down domestically to the United States, that's hundreds of thousands. And in every state in the United States, there isn't even one home. If I could just see one home in every state.
Tell me, we talked about a day in the life of Jenny. What's a day in the life of a young lady who's been recovered and they're under your care? What's that look like?
Oh gosh, it is the most unbelievable, experience to see their welcome home party. So I'll just start with even when she comes home on her first day, because it's like my favorite day. Before a girl even comes home, we receive children through child welfare. So there's a social worker. So if law enforcement recovers a girl, it goes to the child welfare. So we've had an opportunity to interview this child multiple times with social workers, mental health professionals, survivors, to really make sure it's a good fit for us. And so in that process, we ask, what's their favorite color? What's their favorite food? What's their favorite this or that or the other? Mm-hmm. And so all the staff and all the other girls at Courage House that call Courage House home do a welcome party, and it literally is every favorite thing that she's told us, a birthday cake for all the missed birthdays, and just really a sense of welcome home. And I've seen it happen so many times, but it's still so hard to put myself in this child's shoes. Mm-hmm. Our youngest child in Africa was 8 years old, and our youngest child in the United States was 11 years old. Wow. And so you just think about their child, they've been robbed of their innocence, they've been robbed of their childhood. Many of the things that my kids take for granted, like birthday parties and birthday cakes and Santa Claus and, jumpy houses and all of the things that are so normal to my kids, are totally foreign to our girls. So the sense is it's overwhelming with love, overwhelming with welcome. But then it's also really hard for them, because if you didn't receive this from your own biological family, and the family that was supposed to love you and protect you didn't, and in some cases even sold you, it's a sense of loss of how much they've missed. And so we're so sensitive to that. We want to restore that childhood and that innocence, but we can't ever be their family, and they love their families. And so trying to be cognizant of that, and we do family reunification where they're safe family members and try to include the family if there are safe family members. But a lot of times, most of our girls are in the foster care system, and they're not. And even in Tanzania, there's not safe families. So our girls are with us for a while. And so because of that, we have an on-site school because they're all over the place academically. If you've been trafficked for sex, you probably aren't in school every day. Nobody's really monitoring your grades. And so we really have to start, just looking at getting them back on grade point average. And you really can't start that academic process until you start the therapeutic process. So it takes, 3 or 6 months just to establish trust. Just this child didn't ask to come to Courage House. She's been placed at Courage House. And so just establishing trust. So we have equine therapy, art therapy. I call it Labrador Retriever therapy. If anybody loves labs like I do, just trying to get them comfortable and acclimated and just appreciate just nature and being outside. A lot of the girls have been in very urban communities, and so trying to establish peace. And what happens when you are doing that is when their brains have been in survival mode, there's been drugs, there's been alcohol that's high, so you don't know if you're going to be alive or dead, very high adrenaline lifestyle, stressful. And so when you come to this place of peace, what happens is your brain starts dumping the trauma. And so nightmares, flashbacks, all are just kind of common in our world. So it's just trying to create that space where they can go through this healing journey, which sadly, a healing journey means you have to remember what you went through and process the emotions. And so there's many adults who don't want to do therapy, and now we're asking, 12, 13, 14-year-olds, but every day is therapeutic. It's not an hour of talk therapy once a week. It's having this total therapeutic environment, and then we just want to tap into their dreams. It's kind of like the carrot, if you will. Like, why should I do this hard therapy stuff? Because we want to help you be who you were created to be. That's my life coach in me, of seeing them be who they were created to be.
That's what I was going to ask you next. So now, young lady's been under your care for a while, and she's gone through some healing and counseling and therapy, and now she wants to be whatever. So what are some success stories where young ladies have gone through your program and they were able to pursue their dreams and become the person they were meant to be? What would something like that look like?
It looks uniquely different for every girl. I think that's one of the biggest lessons I had to learn, is that we had to redefine success. And if any of us who are biological parents, we had to go through that with our own children. They're little, we set out and have these dreams for them, and then they come along and become teenagers and they do whatever the heck they want to do. And we have to recalibrate our dreams for them. Well, I went through the exact same thing with our girls. I mean, I'm very middle class, very white, very push my kids to go to college. And, that's what we call success in our little bubble, if you will. And so, success for our girls is some of our girls were the first to graduate from high school in their family.
Wow.
Like, that's success. The first high school. And then we had girls who, yes, we have girls in nursing programs. We have girls who are in law enforcement programs. We have one that's going to be a lawyer because she had a lawyer that helped her put away and prepare her to testify against her trafficker. We have girls who want to be social workers because they had amazing social workers in their lives. And so it's interesting to see the girls' dreams were directly because of an adult's impact upon them.
Wow.
I mean, you think about that. Our kids that we raised were impacted by multiple professionals because they were our friends. One of the girls said to me, Jenny, I've never met a good person.
Wow.
And I started thinking about that, and I'm like, I don't know that I met a really bad person. Like, how far away Gary, we were raised in the same place. I mean,
Right.
it was Mayberry, USA.
It
And
was.
it really was. I tell people that all the time. And to have a child say to me, I've never met a good person.
Well,
Like, how do you even have dreams?
right.
So our passion is to expose these kids to travel. We have girls who live in Africa and have never seen a safari. I met a girl
Wow.
who was being trafficked and lived in Hawaii who had never seen the ocean. Think about that.
Wow. Wow.
When you're trafficked, it's a very small world because you're a captive.
Right. You're a
And so we
prisoner.
have to even, absolutely, we
I
have to
just want
help
to
them
stress,
even
and
understand.
a life in Tanzania is, somebody, people may think, well, that doesn't impact me. Well, it does, because that same person is being trafficked right in your backyard, right in Lake Tahoe, right in Nashville, Birmingham, Dallas, or small
Yes,
town USA. It's everywhere, and and it's big business because they just sell the same product over and over and over again in business
over and
terms. Yeah,
absolutely is a commodity that can be a drug, and a gun can only be sold once, but a
yeah,
girl can be sold over and over and over again. And that's the
wow,
thing people ask me in the United States is like, oh, are these kids, immigrants? And I'm like, no, all of our girls were U.S. citizens. It's just,
wow,
it's almost like we try to find ways to make this not be like, no, it can't be our kids, or,
right,
and it is, and it can be.
yeah.
And helping them dream and realize their dreams is my greatest passion. I have the mental health professionals for the trauma and for the education, but for me, my drum I beat, they know me, they call me mama. I am like, you were created on purpose for a purpose, and it is my dying passion to help you find that purpose.
So somebody's driving down the street now in whatever USA city, and they're thinking, well, that's great, and that's too big, and it's not. I don't know what to do. What is a real tangible way where anybody could get involved and help Courage Worldwide? Besides, go to courageworldwide.org and you can read all about it. Okay, that's the website, courageworldwide.org. You can read all about it, because I could talk to Jenny for hours about this, but what's a way where somebody could tangibly get involved?
I tell people all the time, educate yourself. I don't think, I mean, yes, I can jump off and say, hit the donate button, give money, but that's almost like a one-time feel-good thing for you. I did that. The first time I heard about trafficking, I wrote the biggest check that I could write to make it like go away, that could clear my bank account. And then I was like, whew, okay, I'm done. Ha. But it's like we almost do that for ourselves initially, like, okay, let me just give and feel better because you're making me feel bad. Educate
Yeah.
yourself. If this is something that is just like, whoa, stopped you in your tracks, I probably spent 2 years just understanding human trafficking. And then the other thing I encourage people to do is to check out your nonprofits that you give to. Just like any business that you would invest in, we don't just, okay, I'm sitting here talking to you now. Anybody can have a pretty website. I got a southern accent. I mean, know who you're giving to, because that's
Right.
the business part of me, is that we have to file 990s, we have to have our financials done. Give to somebody that's sustainable or has a big dream and a vision. There's a great crowd of people that gave to the vision of Courage when it was nothing but a dream on a piece of paper. And there's those people who
Wow.
give to dreams and give to visions, and then there's people who give to sustainability. And so research the effort that issue that breaks your heart, and then align yourself with an organization. And I said there's people who go and there's people who give. We take teams to Tanzania all the time. We're going to do a founders trip coming up here. Our 20th anniversary will be 2025, and I'm going to do a founders trip, and I'd love to take a
Wow.
group of professional business people to see, what we built in Tanzania and what we're building
Wow.
in the
Maybe
United
I'll
States.
go.
So, come on. We'll,
May
we'll
do
bring
it. May
we'll
do
bring
it.
James, and we can record the whole thing. It'd be awesome.
Oh, boy, that
but
really
I
would
just,
be wild. Wouldn't that be fun?
yeah, it would be. Pay
That would
attention
be
to what
great.
breaks your heart. Pay attention to what breaks your heart and stays on your radar.
Other thing I would add to that is to do what you do for the thing that you have a passion about. So, like, what does that mean? Like, I have a passion for business and value and doing all that kind of stuff. So I want to teach other people how to grow their business and do what they do, but for the sense of, of giving back, right? So I call it Grow to Give. So we're just getting started with that program. You'll see some more stuff about it coming out, but I'm excited about it, and we'll see, what happens. I think Jenny and I both have set goals that are way too big for us to do on our own. So, and we did that on each of us, and I'm not trying to speak for, on purpose, because now we know, and we're both people of faith. We share the same faith that for this to happen, only, God's the only one who can make it happen, because I certainly can't. And but I love trying to do something that's too big for me. So, I try to keep these to about 25 or 30 minutes, and we've about hit that. I could keep on going for hours, really. So, but just hopefully we can have you back and do it again sometime and talk about some more about Courage Worldwide and stuff. So if please go to Jenny's website, which is courageworldwide.org. Read all about it. Read all about human trafficking. Hopefully you will get motivated to get involved in some way, and let you decide what that is, whether you give or go or support or whatever that is. And then as far as your business owners, grow to give, and I'll teach you how to do that, right? I'll teach you how to grow your business. But people say that all the time, but but there's got to be purpose, behind that. Why do you do it? What are you going to do with that? You're just going to have a bunch of toys? Nothing wrong with that, but is that it? Or you're going to impact lives, and how are you going to do that? So that's all I have for today. But thank you so much, Jenny, for coming. Thank you, James, for helping us put on all this. That's my son, our technical support and producer. And so giving you a plug there, James. So thank you so much. And with that, we'll end it for today, and we'll come back again and do it again soon.
Thank you, Gary.